Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Today we're back here, Film Theory. We're back to the Digital Circus for this one. This one's called Kinger's Tragic Fate is Near. I know it's not the title, but yeah, basically it's predicting Kinger's fate. Or, well, basically he's saying he's the next to die, which I did suggest, at this point, you gotta expect something to happen on screen to one of the cast members, it's horror, right? You gotta expect it. So, let's just see what do you think Kinger's fate's gotta be. Will he be abstracted? Will he just off himself? I don't know. We're about to find out. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Let's check it out.
The Amazing Digital Circus has told us exactly who the next person to abstract is, and it's all thanks to socks. Wait, socks? Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that's for mature Zoobles only. So at this point, you probably all know about the Amazing Digital Circus. This show absolutely exploded onto the scene last year, and it's easy to see why people connected with it.
It's up to you to
Dick.
What? I thought we were supposed to capture all the ghosts.
It's funny, thoughtful, gifable, and most importantly for us, theorizable. And today I want to once again throw my hat into the ring. Funnily enough, this was originally going to be a mini theory, just a little something extra I wanted to put out because of some interesting stuff I noticed in episode 3 of the Digital Circus. But, well, you can see the runtime of this episode. It's a full-length theory, baby.
Yep.
See, in the 3 episodes we've gotten from the series so far,
The
there's
pilot,
been a
the
lot of little
Candyland,
hints
and
about the backstories for this lovable cast. And in episode 3, we got a lot, even from subtle hints or offhanded comments. Like, take a listen to this line from Pomni.
I knew it would end up like this! He just wants me to suffer. I really am in hell.
Did you catch that? Pomni knew it would end up like this? He wants me to suffer? Who's he? Like, you might think it's Kane, but it doesn't really track with what Pomni said about Kane in the past. And how did she know it would end up like this? Like, Gooseworks has said that characters remember their previous lives, it's just their names that they forget. And this line implies that Pomni not only knew what she was getting into by putting on the headset, otherwise how could she know it would end up like this, but she also knew that he, whoever he is, wanted her to suffer because of it. I'm gonna be real with you, I'm not sure what this means yet exactly. We don't have enough information, but it is absolutely something we should keep our hundreds of all-seeing eyes on. So if you want to get in on that discussion, you can go join the awesome community of theorists that popped up around this series over on the Digital Circus subreddit. Let me know what you think of it. But even with that
Okay, yeah, I definitely missed that one when I was watching the episode, but I wonder who she was talking about. Her boss? I think we can all agree this is definitely an AI program. My guess is the boss must have forced her into the program to do something. Test it? I don't know. Get the people out of there? I don't know. But the fact that she's still trying... Okay, I was about to say, I don't know if she's still trying to find the exit, but there's something going on here. Right? Like I said, my guess is, like I said, they're all employees. They got stuck into the game. Maybe they were test driving it, and the AI or whatever took over. And now Pomni's job is to get them all out. But something tells me it's not going to end up like that.
fascinating tidbit hinting at Pomni's past, the character we get the most out of this episode is actually Kinger. Yeah, everyone's favorite forgetful chess piece. And let me tell you, loyal theorists, what we see here from Kinger is sad. This is not a character with a bright and cheery backstory. And if we follow the logical conclusion for this character, if we look at all of the hints we get in the story and the lore, and yes, even the merch, Kinger is going to be a tragic character with a tragic end. Get your shotguns ready, friends. We're turning this 57-second story into a Greek tragedy. So the first thing I wanted to cover here that I promise leads into our discussion of Kinger, if we pay attention to this latest episode, we'll find that the appearance that the cast takes on while in the circus directly reflects parts of their personality and their backstory. Here, let me explain. First off, we have Ragatha. She's a pretty normal, level-headed character and is trying to keep everything and everyone calm. Therefore, she appears as a bit of a normal Raggedy Ann doll. Okay, that's not much, but if you want something stronger, when he does his Gangle is coded as suffering from bipolar disorder, jumping between happy manic episodes and major depressive episodes. You can check out our recent video on the Inside Out tapes where we talk about that in detail. But again, this directly parallels what we see with Gangle's switching between happy and sad with her comedy and tragedy masks. Then there's Jax, the lovable jerk who is also a terrible person. Like, legit, in this episode, we're told that. that.
In this world, the worst thing you can do is make someone think they're not wanted or loved.
That's constantly what Jax does. He's absolutely a bad guy. But more importantly, he's a big purple rabbit. Now, I likely don't need to tell you who
I
else
think
is
we all
purple,
agree he's still an
loves
AI.
rabbits, and is a bad guy. But
I
even
have to-
beyond FNAF's still haunting me, rascally rabbits are a consistent trope in media. You have the tortoise and the hare, Bugs Bunny, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, Nabbit, heck, even the Trix Rabbit. All of them are tricksters or jerks reflecting what Jax is here in this series. Meanwhile, you also have Pomni taking the form of a jester. Historically speaking, jesters were used in the courts of nobles and royals to provide comic relief for their patrons, to make them laugh. And what do we see here with Pomni? She's often the butt of the joke, the center of attention as she's stretched and smashed and put through the ringer in these new adventures. But even more than that, jesters were often the only people who could provide true, unfiltered feedback for the royalty that they served, telling them tough truths as long as it was laced with comedy. So paradoxically, despite their upbeat demeanor and appearance, they were often some of the saddest people at court emotionally.
Oh, yeah,
you can
'cause
see
they
this
knew the
really
truth.
well in the famous painting Stanchik by Jan Matejko, where a jester sits sadly after discovering some horrible news while the nobles in the room behind him just party it up. Now, this might not immediately seem like it would map onto Pomni, but think about it.
Considering
Who
what
is
she's been
constantly
through?
questioning the adventures?
Lord.
The circus itself. Who doesn't want to play along because they think the system is broken?
What time period is this supposed to be again? The NPCs aren't gonna become self-aware in this one, right? I hate this stupid adventure!
Pomni, just like a jester pointing out that the king has no clothes. But all of that being
Pretty
said,
much.
the clearest parallel here is
Oh, Zooble.
Zooble. See, Zooble has an ambiguous gender identity. When asked if they were non-binary, Gooseworks said that Zooble
Doesn't
isn't
even
sure
know
what
what
they
they
are.
are.
While the script uses they for Zooble, Zooble is comfortable with any pronouns, and some concept art humorously labeled Zooble's gender as Zooble. Now, far be it from me to talk about someone's gender identity, I'm going to stay in my lane. But according to research,
true.
many trans, non-binary, and gender-fluid folk often feel body dysmorphia or gender dysphoria related to their gender identity. This is
Oh,
being
like
directly
Zooble. Look at
reflected
that.
as a metaphor with Zooble's arc in the digital circus. They're unhappy with their body, uncomfortable
Yeah,
with their
just like
limbs,
that.
and despite trying to switch out parts to find something that works for them, to the point that every time we see them in the different episodes, they have a different combination of limbs, they just can't.
I hate this body. I hate all these stupid removable pieces. I just want to find something that feels good.
Also, it's played for laughs here that Kane just can't comprehend this struggle, but it makes sense, doesn't it? If Zooble is gender fluid or on the non-binary spectrum, well, Kane is literally binary. He's made up of ones and zeros. He can't understand this human struggle, and that struggle is being reflected in Zooble's digital circus counterpart. It's great storytelling. Regardless, all of this is to say,
Yeah, that's actually does make a lot of sense when you think about it like that. Could explain her attitude too. Like, I mean, remember, she doesn't want to go on these adventures. Like, I mean, heck, she only went on the first one because she was broken apart and taken by the Wubbles. So, and the fact that she hasn't gone on the other two really shows like she just doesn't fit in. You know, at least not sure of it. At least, I mean, it makes sense, but. But so that's most of them. We're still waiting on a Kinger. I mean, the king piece that usually is saved for last, but or at least that's what I think. I wonder, like, I mean, so I'm trying to like figure out what the heck's going on, but to each their own. Anyway,
that if this applies to the rest of the cast to varying degrees, it should also apply to Kinger. His appearance should directly reflect parts of his past and his personality. So, using that, what do we know about Kinger? First off, he's dressed like a royal. He's a king chess piece with a beautiful, flowing purple cloak. Purple has historically been a symbol of wealth, since purple dye was difficult, time-consuming, and expensive to produce. Kinger is also forgetful, perhaps reflecting a past that he doesn't want to remember, or a mistake that he wants to forget. Okay, so let me ask you, what else does all of that sound like? Baron Theodore Mildenhall, the ghostly villain of the newest level here in the Digital Circus. Yeah, in this horror-themed haunted house, we're introduced to the character Theodore Mildenhall, a wealthy baron driven to insanity. Already sounds like Kinger, right? Well, the similarities run so much deeper than that. First of all, we know that Mildenhall loved hunting, like he does just straight up say it.
Hunting has been a hobby of mine for as long as I can remember. Although one could say it eventually became more of an obsession.
Fascinating that he would use the phrase, "as long as I can remember" here, and Kinger has trouble with his memory. It's just an interesting parallel. Regardless, this does pan out. Not only are there plenty of trophies hung on his wall, similar to what hunters would do with their notable catches, but we also see photos of big game like rhinos and cryptids in his desk. This maps pretty well onto Kinger, who is surprisingly competent with a gun.
Looks like we've got 2 shots. Let's make them count.
And we see him hunt and kill a fly in this episode.
There's a fly in here.
Don't you think that's making a lot of noise? Oh god, there is a fly.
And gotcha!
Plus, that fly was a flying, buzzing creature with wings and weird eyes, exactly like the angel Mildenhall hunted.
What's what?
As Mildenhall became more obsessed, he also became more paranoid and jumpy.
Jumping at every shadow, every noise.
And this also describes Kinger to a T. Just cue a montage of him jumping or getting scared by things he didn't expect.
Oh, Jax!
And all of that is without mentioning that some of Kinger's thoughts are literally finished by Mildenhall on these tapes.
That wasn't so bad.
Which is what I would be saying if I didn't know that the creature was actually one of God's angels.
There is no doubt a connection between these two characters. Secondly, the way Kinger reacts to a lot of the situations here in this haunted house is really suspect. Like he's either trying to remember his past or desperately trying not to. For example, when he first hears the Baron's backstory, it seems to jog something in Kinger's memory, but he can't quite grasp it.
You know, I'm starting to think...
Then, when the lights fully go out and Kinger's able to remember more clearly, what's the first thing he does?
What happened?
I just remembered a really funny joke.
Why did you scream then?
Maybe it wasn't actually that funny.
He instantly remembers something that makes him scream, tries to play it off like it was a joke, but then concedes that maybe it wasn't actually that funny. Was he remembering something horrific from his past? Like something similar to Mildenhall? Finally, the cinematography of this episode really makes a point to drive a parallel between Mildenhall and Kinger, like just from the way the camera decides to linger on characters and when it does so. Take a look at this sequence.
I took it upon myself to spend every waking moment, doing all I could to protect my family from the creature, hoping that when I'd eventually killed it, I would be freed from this awful feeling.
It cuts to Kinger the second it talks about protecting his family. Likewise, here when describing the creature that Mildenhall was obsessed with, the camera distinctly cuts back and forth between the angel and Kinger.
Not quite a man, but not quite an animal.
It's going out of its way to create this connection. So, okay, if Kinger is basically Mildenhall, and Mildenhall is being haunted by this angel, what's haunting Kinger? What's driven him down this spiral? Well, just like Mildenhall, I believe that Kinger is the reason that his wife died. Again, the cinematography really drives this home.
I ended up shooting the love of my life, mistaking her for the creature.
The shot immediately shifts to Kinger when it talks about shooting the love of his life. And what's more, we know that Kinger has already mistaken the angel for his wife.
You look beautiful, honey.
So it's not a stretch to think that, just like Mildenhall hunted and harmed this creature and was banished to hell for it, all while his family fell apart, so was Kinger. But perhaps the best bit of evidence for this, when Pomni and Kinger are dragged down to hell and Pomni is possessed by evil spirits, what do they say?
How's your wife, Kinger?
They're taunting Kinger with this. He's the reason his wife got hurt, the reason she quote-unquote died. Even if these characters are not exactly the same, their stories are not completely identical beat for beat, there are clearly parallels. There was a reason Kinger was on this adventure and not like Gangle or Ragatha or Jax. But how? Why? What is the purpose of all of these parallels with Kinger? What is this trying to tell us about him and his past beyond the metaphor? Well, it's tragic.
But wait, now I think about it, could this be like a punishment kind of deal? Like, or I don't know, treatment? for trauma. Like, maybe that's what's going on with the digital circus kind of stuff. Treatment for trauma, right? Like, treatment doesn't really work, like, straight away, right? It's usually a progress. Or at least that's what I'm thinking. And, well, Kane really seems to really want to help out. But Jax, the supposed second AI that I see, or we know of, maybe he doesn't want the help. Or at least a struggle. Good and evil. I don't know. Like, again, Pomni knew about this place before she went in. And yet, still went in. Does that mean she has some trauma from the past? My guess is, like, they're struggling to move on. And I'm guessing the company that made this place, or at least the Amazing Digital Circus itself, wants to help in a way. And I'm guessing the ones that abstracted are the ones that are just too far gone. Or just lost. At least that's how I see it, but I don't know. At least that's how I see it. Just the ones that couldn't, like, cope with it, you know? There are relapses and all that. And people, like, treatment isn't work for everybody, right? Again, that's just my theory, but I feel like that's what's going on in the circus. It could be like a treatment program. Like, the abstract is, like, you officially surrender. Like, how, you know, Kaufmo basically surrendered after couldn't find the exit, right? At least that's how I see it, but I'm not too sure. We're gonna have to wait for another abstraction to make sure, like, that's the way they're going about it, but I don't know. It's just my thought, but let's keep moving.
But I believe that Kinger may have gotten his wife to join the circus. Maybe it was to save her from some sickness or some disease or some tragic accident, to copy her brain into this computer so it could live on. But either way, it backfired on Kinger big time. And like, it's not that this just fits with Mildenhall's story.
In my attempts to protect her, I ended up becoming the monster myself.
But it also fits with what little we know to be 100% true about Kinger's origins. See, in a previous theory, we speculated that Kinger used to be a QA developer or bug tester for CNA, the company that made the Digital Circus. But as we've gotten more information, I don't think that's the case anymore. All of the flags that we noticed about bugs and insects were actually pointing to his wife's interests, but that doesn't mean that Kinger didn't work for CNA. And I actually believe he was a higher up at the company for a few reasons. Firstly, I explained earlier that I believe Kinger was a wealthy person before joining the circus. That would make sense if he was some sort of big shot at a tech company like CNA. But in this episode, we also got this tidbit.
7 years of computer science for this, huh?
I don't know about you, but that really stuck out to me. And we know for a fact that this 7-year time frame is important. See, over on the Digital Circus subreddit, user Nerd the Scourge noticed that this timeline wasn't consistent in all of the dubs of the show. In English, German, and Vietnamese, Kinger says 7 years, but in most other languages like Spanish, Japanese, and French, he says 4 years. That's the time frame you'd expect to get a bachelor's degree at university, so that makes sense for being in computer science, right? But here's the thing. In the comments of this thread, one of the actual translators that worked with Glitch for the German dub left a comment. User I Am Proud of Reddit explained that the script that they were working with originally said 4 years, but was changed to 7 years shortly before release. They assumed that most of the other dubs just didn't have time to record the new line, thus the discrepancy between the languages. But more importantly for us here, Gooseworks and Glitch originally had one timeline in mind, but made a point to go back and change it. They thought that this 7-year time frame was so important that they had to go and make a last-minute change. Assuming that this is how long Kinger studied computer science in college? That's a long time to be going to school. Like, that's how long you would be studying if you were getting a doctorate degree, as in Kinger would be a doctor of computer science. Dr. Kinger. That would make him an attractive candidate at companies like Google or Microsoft, or, say, a developer like CNA, almost certainly in a high position. Once more, we can also piece together a rough timeline here. In a previous theory, we speculated that the Amazing Digital Circus was straight up set in the 90s due to all of the ancient-looking computer hardware. But that's probably not the case. In this episode, we see a grave outside of Mildenhall Manor that reads R.I.P. Peggy 2019 to 2022. So, while this may be a game from the 90s, clearly time has continued on, and this story is almost certainly set in the early 2020s. According to Gooseworks, we know that Kinger is 48 years old. If we assume the series is set in about 2020, that Kinger went to college when he was 18 and spent 7 years studying there, that would mean he would have graduated in the late 90s, the perfect time to join or found a game developer like CNA in the late 90s. Kinger knew about the circus before joining the circus. He knew what he was getting himself and his wife into, but perhaps he didn't understand the torture they'd be under, the constant torment and insanity they'd be forced into, the abstraction that awaits them at the end. If he wanted to save his wife, like we speculated here today, then that would just add on to the guilt. He didn't end up saving her, he ended up killing her, just like Mildenhall and his wife. So that's Kinger's tragic backstory, but what does this tell us about what comes next? Well, after this episode, I think it's clear that Kinger is going to abstract, and it's going to be soon. First of all, he has death flags up the wazoo, like indications that he's going to be on the chopping block. I mean, how many characters have suggested that he's basically on the cusp of abstraction and that they're surprised that he hasn't yet?
I mean, no offense, Kinger, but I always thought you would be next.
Thank you.
And drawing parallels with more of Mildenhall's quotes, he says,
If nothing else, I will slay the beast that took everything from me.
Is this talking about Kinger? Will he allow himself to abstract and join his wife in the cellar? And if all of that doesn't convince you, if you think all of that is a long shot, well, Glitch might have revealed his fate right under all of our noses. In a previous theory, we noticed that Glitch tells us a lot about their characters' personalities, who they consider important, and also potentially the future of their characters through the merchandise they sell of them. So, the fact that Jax's pin was the only one where the pinback was torn to show the void behind him told us that he's likely going to have more than meets the eye. And, well, Reddit user the Red J Cat Mama on our subreddit noticed that Glitch is now selling a pair of matching socks. They're stylized to look like abstracted monsters, but one of the sets is lined with red and the other with purple. Queenie's cloak was red. And what color is Kinger's cloak? Purple. By the end of things, just like these socks, Kinger and Queenie are going to match again as abstracted entities. But the thing that really cemented this for me, Kinger's character arc is coming to a close. See, something else that really stood out to me in this episode was this quote from Mildenhall.
My paranoia had driven me to the point where I was no longer the protector my wife and theoretical children needed.
Fun fact, we actually get a glimpse of this family here in the episode, kind of hidden in the darkness if you brighten up the image. But regardless, theoretical children is an interesting phrase, right?
Yeah,
like, it could mean something like a future child, one that hasn't been born yet. Or it could mean an adopted child. And tell me, who is Kinger very protective of in this episode, both emotionally and physically? Pomni. He physically protects her from the angel in this scenario that she's clearly terrified of.
Stay behind me. Just leave it to me. I can handle this.
But he's also treating her with kindness, trying to help her process this awful situation she's in. Like, just listen to this.
Sometimes it all just feels pointless, but it's not. Not if you have people who care about you. Cherish the people around you. You never know when they'll be gone.
That right there, that's Kinger doing his best, intentionally or no, to prepare Pomni for what's to come. Teaching her that even if someone's dead, that they're gone, while that's sad, it's going to be okay. And if you die, if you're the person who's dead and gone, as long as you made a positive impact, even just on one person, then you've done what you've needed to.
Don't worry about me. As long as you remember it, things will be okay.
And finally, what does Kinger do here to help Pomni out of this horror show, out of this literal afterlife like hell? He holds her hand and guides her through it.
You're very strong, Pomni, and I know you'll be able to get through this. Just hold on to me. We'll get through it together.
He even glows like some sort of guardian angel transcending to the next life. Glitch could not be more clear about this if they tried. Kinger is going to abstract and soon, and he's going to join his wife in the afterlife of the cellar. They'll be together once again, and even though it will be sad to lose Kinger, it'll be okay, because as long as Pomni and the rest remember him, he'll never really be gone. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory! And cut! Up next on Film Theory, the Amazing Digital Circus just told us exactly where its story is going, all from one single line.
I need a living.
Okay, that one's a previous one, but jeez, I was like, what the heck? Anyway, there you go. So Kinger's gonna be abstracted, which thanks to socks, as he said. I mean, considering it is a purple abstracted sock, I'm not surprised. But sheesh. I mean, if Pomni hasn't suffered enough. But here's hoping she still has someone else to cling to, because I feel like Kinger is about to go. I mean, if it's the case, rest in peace, Kinger, in the future. Sorry in advance. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.